Hey everybody, Brian and Leslie Fatherees here with the Unbreakable podcast. We're coming to you today, the week after Thanksgiving, so we hope you enjoyed your Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Hope you had a great time gathering and gobbling,
Mm-hmm.
doing all the things that you do, maybe football, maybe sleeping, whatever it is that you do with your family on Thanksgiving. We took last week off
Yeah.
to enjoy our family, so we'll be um, putting up two different podcasts this week just to make up for the one that we didn't do last week. So we're just here with you. We're glad to be with you. And we are excited to share some ideas and thoughts with you
Mm-hmm.
on how to guard your marriage and guard your family this week.
Yes.
So we want to talk to you about that very thing. We want to talk to you about guarding your marriage. We want to talk to you about guarding your family. We want to start with guarding your marriage.
Yes.
And it's really breaks down to something really basic when we start,
Yeah.
and it's your thoughts.
Yep.
And your mouth.
Yep.
But we're going to start with your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Leslie's jotted down a few scriptures, and we're just going to talk about what we've done and what you can do. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you go ahead and start out with
Okay.
the thoughts process.
The Bible tells us in Proverbs that as a man thinks in his heart, so is he.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're thinking is a very creative force. It's a very strong force. It affects you because what you think about you really makes a difference, and then it affects others. What you think about others makes a difference in your relationships. Philippians 4 is very specific in telling us to think on good things. We need to find what's good and lovely and pure and holy and true and just and all those things. And we need to think about those things, because when we keep those thoughts in our mind, then that produces good things in our life.
Yep.
Luke tells us that out of the abundance of the heart, our mouth speaks. So what we've put into our mind and what we've put into our heart, then that's what's going to come out of our mouth.
Right.
Why is that so important? Because in Proverbs, it also tells us that the fruit of our words cause us to be satisfied. It gives us good things when we say good things. Another way to put it, Proverbs 18 says that death and life are in the power of your tongue, and you'll eat the fruit of whichever you speak. So we want to choose good words, but the way to get good words coming out of our mouth is to put the good words in our head and in our heart.
Yeah, and as far as thoughts go, what came to my mind immediately was the scripture that says to take captivity every thought that comes to you. It's always been a goal of mine to, as thoughts come, good or bad, look at them, grab them, hold them, and look at it and say, is this a good thought? Is it a godly thought, or is it not? And if it's not, discard it. If it is, keep it. I have never reached that goal. I have tried and tried and tried, but I have never attained that level of captivity of thought.
Right.
Because thoughts come and they go. So don't feel guilty or judged if you have thoughts that come that aren't godly or aren't good. I think all people fight with that. One of the best books that came out in the 90s, I think it was by Joyce Meyer. It's called The Battlefield of the Mind.
Right.
And that seems to be where we do our most of our fighting is our own brain.
Yeah.
Even in business, they talk about limiting beliefs and how we limit ourselves by the way we believe about ourselves and how we think about ourselves. Because the Bible says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So if I think I'm going to be broke all my life, I probably will be. Right. If I think I'm going to be sick all my life, I probably will be.
Right.
If I think I'll never find love, I probably won't. It's the thoughts that I plant in my brain to do that. And here's the thing. It's human nature to think negatively.
Right.
So we tend to think about the worst case scenario. Like, for example, if the principal calls you to his office and you start to go to his office, what do you think of? What did I do? Why is he calling me?
All the bad things.
I saw a video probably a year or so ago where the principal called this kid in. It was from a local school in the area. And he called this kid in from, he was actually getting the Student of the Year award, but he didn't know it.
Right.
So he comes in and the principal starts going, we saw what you did in the last test. And he starts messing with this kid because, the kid's thinking, oh God, what'd I do? And then about the time the kid's about to break, the principal lets him off the hook, says, no, you're the Student of the Year. Here's your award. Congratulations. We're so proud of you. Because he earned that. But here's a straight A student, really nice kid, You know, he's
Mm-hmm.
not really done anything wrong. And
Yeah.
in his brain, his thoughts, he's thinking, why am I in this room with this guy?
Mm-hmm.
And so we just tend to do that. We tend to um, think negatively.
Right.
Another thing they say in business areas that we've learned, we've gone to webinars and seminars and different things, that it takes is either 6 or 7 positive thoughts to remove one negative thought.
Right. Yeah.
So it's really crucial what you're putting in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
It's really crucial what you're thinking about.
Right.
And then let's apply that to marriage. What are you thinking about your spouse?
Right. Exactly.
What are you thinking about them? Are you thinking, oh man, they're cheating on me? Or are you thinking, they don't really like me? Or they do this thing that really aggravates me? Is all your thoughts
Mm-hmm.
based on criticism and fear?
Yes.
Or are your thoughts based in how amazed you are at how they love you? How amazed you are that, you found this person to be
Mm-hmm.
your spouse?
Mm-hmm.
Where are you placing your thoughts
Right.
regarding to your spouse?
Right.
And how because how you think about your spouse
Mm-hmm.
is going to come out.
Right.
Even if you're trying to suppress that, it's going to come out, because Proverbs says, as a man thinks in his heart,
Right.
so is he. So you can't help yourself but let that come out
Mm-hmm.
at some point. It might be in an argument. It might be in a disagreement. It might be just something triggers those thoughts that they start pouring out of your mouth because you did not think the right things about your spouse.
Right. Yeah. So I think there's like he was talking about how you capture the thought and discard it, and I think along that pathway there to getting to that stage to be able to capture every thought.
Yeah.
I think there is I mean, I know I stop at this level right now. I have thoughts and I recognize that's a negative thought, or I recognize that's a positive thought.
Right.
I maybe don't every time discard or keep the thought the way I'm supposed to. But I do recognize it. It comes to mind. So there's like levels of you're working up to being able to get those thoughts captured. But I also think that there are things like maybe I don't like the way he brushes his teeth or something. I don't know. That's just I'm making it up. But if I don't like the way that he brushes his teeth, and I think that thought, that could be an innocuous thought that once I leave the bathroom, I'm never going to think about that again, and it's not going to bother me.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be one that starts to fester and get inside, and I just hate the way he does that, and if I focus on it and don't discard that thought, then it's going to grow into this big, huge thing that was never meant to be. And it's over something stupid like how he brushes his teeth. So it's important to capture the thoughts. It's important to stop the ones that are really not innocuous. They're going to go somewhere.
Right.
And you have to be able to recognize if it's going to go somewhere or not.
Yeah.
I choose to think good thoughts about Brian every day. And he chooses to think good thoughts about me every day. And that's something that we have determined we're going to do.
Yeah.
We definitely made the decision that we were going to think good thoughts about each other and speak good words about each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And as far as the innocuous thought goes, too, she's talking about if you start letting that seed of criticism, I guess would be the right word,
Mm-hmm.
or complaining,
Mm-hmm.
that's inside you on the one thing, then it'll start to escalate to, well, not only do I not like the way he brushes his teeth, I don't like the way he puts his socks on.
Right.
Why doesn't he get out of my way when I need to do this?
Mm-hmm.
I wish we had 3 bathrooms so he could have his own and leave me alone my own. It begins to escalate,
right.
And the whole make a mountain out of a molehill kind of thing comes into play. So those thoughts really are not, they seem innocuous.
Mm-hmm.
They seem innocent enough. Like, it's not that big deal. But they can become a big deal,
right?
Depending on how you think about them,
right,
and how you dwell on them.
Yes,
because the thing you dwell on is the thing that is taking place foremost in your mind,
right?
And so you start thinking about those things. You start, he used to be good looking. He lost all his hair. I don't want a problem. She's laughing, but all those things. And well, I didn't lose it. I shave it, but anyway, I lost most of it, but not all of it. But then but those thoughts can come and can be disruptive to your relationship.
Right.
They can be very disruptive to how you interact. They can be
Right.
disruptive to your intimacy,
Mm-hmm.
to your friendship,
Mm-hmm.
to even how you parent your children. And we'll talk about that in another video. But the thoughts that you have really determine a lot of your actions.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And if you pay attention to when you do get pressured in your
Yeah.
relationship at some point, what comes out
Yeah.
will be that thing that's bugging you the most.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it waits and waits until there's something pushing on it, and then
Yeah.
it's like, nope, I'm coming out now. And then you've said it, and you've created a bigger problem.
Yeah. You know, in our culture, in our world, they talk about trigger points,
Mhm.
being triggered. And so if they weren't thinking about those things, the trigger wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Because they'd be shooting blanks. It
Right.
wouldn't be there. When I was a youth pastor, I guess 9 years ago, I used to do an illustration. I talk about take 2 big yard bags, that, for leaves, and fill one with potpourri and flowers and perfume and things that smell good, and take that and set it out in the middle of August in the heat, in the sun, and let it sit there for about 20, 30 days. And take another bag and put in banana peels and leftovers and food
Garbage.
and garbage and just fill that thing and set that a few feet away from the same other bag, from the other bag with the other stuff, and let it sit for the same amount of time. Now, at the end of 30 or 60 days, however long you let it sit out there, go out and start poking holes in the bag and then squeeze it. What comes out? The one bag is going to be aroma, it's going to be beautiful. The other bag is just going to be nasty. So the thing I always told the kids is what you put in is what comes out.
Yes.
And you won't know what you put in until you're squeezed.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're squeezed, what is it that comes out? Is it a sweet smelling aroma because you put really good thoughts in?
Right.
Or is it just this bad aroma that it's a stench because you put all these negative things and they're just sitting in there dwelling and stewing and baking and all of a sudden you get pressured, you get squeezed, and those things come flowing out of you.
Yes.
And so you got to be really, really cautious about the thoughts that you put in, and you have to be careful how you take thoughts in. The things that you read, the things that you watch, the things that you listen to.
Yeah.
Because if you're watching shows that are bashing marriage, or like, for example, if Leslie watched half the reality shows that are out there, that there's knock on men. I mean, they man bash all the time.
Yeah.
It's amazing how they have attacked manhood in our culture and our media. But she listened to all that over and over and over and over again. Even though she's guarding her thoughts, some of that can penetrate. And then she can begin to think about me in the light of what these fake people, because they're not real.
No.
Because even the reality shows are scripted, right? So they're not real. So she could look and begin to think, well, yeah, that's me. That's and that begins developing and begins to harm our relationship, even though it's just off of a non-real reality.
Same thing. If he would watch shows where the women are fighting over some bachelor or whatever they do, and being ugly but also portraying the feminist woman that is not godly, but just out for her own thing, manipulating and doing all the things. If he watched that all the time, then he would think that I was maybe like that, or I had thoughts that were toward that. Or he would begin to form an opinion of women and me from a wrong perspective. So it's just really important what you put in so that you can guard what you are thinking.
So we want you to just be careful in that, and now we want to take it to the next level because the thoughts become your words.
Yes.
And so,
they do.
From the fruit of your words, it says, a man shall be satisfied. It said, the death and life are in the power of the tongue. I mean, I can kill my spouse. I'm not saying that. You can kill your marriage. You can kill your relationship. You can do all sorts of things that are bad. So the thought process becomes the mouth process.
And we're not even talking like super abusive.
No, not at all.
Sometimes it's just very subtle. But what you say, you can, if you make a comment to your best friend about how, my spouse always does this and it's such a, irritant to me. Okay, you just put those words out there that you're going to be irritated every time that spouse does this one thing. And so you're setting in motion a process of being irritated all the time with that one thing that they do.
Yeah. And you need to guard your mouth about your spouse with others, not just with each other.
With each other, yeah.
It starts with each other, but when you're not near each other, it's really easy to slide in and join in the conversation with other people.
Yeah.
I will not bad talk about and back talk about my wife with other people. Even if I'm mad at her, even if she's done something I don't like, even if we're in the middle of a disagreement, I'm not going to take that to other people and start talking my wife down to other people. I don't do that. And one of the things that just irritates the daylights out of me is I watch Facebook and I watch all these young couples, married and unmarried, cohabitating, not cohabitating, all that, and they just bash each other.
Yeah.
They have a moment that could actually be overcome. In some cases it can, but in some cases it can be. It can be overcome. But when they get on there and my boyfriend, blah, 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 my girlfriend, blah, 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 my spouse, blah, 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 I wish I wasn't married, but how do you take that back?
You don't.
How do you take that back? There's an illustration I've heard a pastor share one time too, about this guy, his son, little guy, probably 7, 8 years old, said some things he shouldn't say to his dad. And his dad, it hurt his dad's feelings, but his dad was mature enough to handle it and move on. And his son apologized, said, I want to take those words back. He said, well, come with me, son. They lived out on a farm. He gave him a bucket of nails and a hammer. He said, let's start. So he hammered these nails all through this fence.
Yeah.
And then when he got done, he said, now, let's go on the other side. And they knocked them all back out and put them in the bucket. And he looked. He goes, oh, look at that. There's holes in there. Because there's no way to take those holes back. And those holes represent your words.
Yes.
Once you speak it, it's really difficult to take it back. You can repent. You can ask for forgiveness.
And you should.
And you should. You can take back what you said. But the fact is, it's been said.
Right.
I love when I watch the political stuff or the celebrity stuff and they say stuff and then they come back, well, I misspoke. Well, I didn't, that's not what I really meant to say. Yeah. Let me backtrack that a little bit. Well, the thing is, you said it.
Yes, you
already said it. I know you're already thinking it, and out of the abundance of your heart, your mouth spoke.
Yeah.
So I'm not buying the apology at that point.
James says in the Bible that our words can set a forest on fire with just a little tiny spark. Yeah. Just one little thing that we say can set an entire forest on fire. And so it's really, really important what you're speaking. I try very hard. Brian tries the same thing. Well, maybe not try is not the word, but we do.
We work at it.
We speak to one another kindly, lovingly. Even if we get irritated, you'll watch us kind of sit there and think before we're speaking, because we don't want to say something.
Yeah, we don't lash out.
That's harmful. We want to say things that are helpful to the situation. And so taking that moment to process and think before you speak is important. That's another way to guard, is by taking that moment to think before you say it. And sometimes there's situations where maybe it's not even an explosive thing. Maybe it's just something I need to approach with him. But I know it's not going to make him really happy, and it's kind of making me not want to talk about it, but yet I know it has a subject that needs to be broached. But I'm still going to think about what I'm going to say before I say it, so that when I do say it, I'm using words that are building him up and helpful to the situation, and they're not harmful to us, but they give us, the opening to speak and to talk about something, and then we can move on.
Yeah, and there's other times we don't say a thing. Like, I tell she's mad, and I'm like, do you have something to say? And she'll look at me. If I open my mouth with the words I want to say, it's not going to be good. So I'm just going to be quiet for a little bit, and then we can come revisit this. That's fair, and that's okay. because I'd rather revisit it when she's calmed down.
And sometimes it's just better to say nothing than to say something.
Yeah.
Nothing is sometimes a good thing.
And then once you're out of the heat of the moment, of the disagreement, the argument, whatever it is, you can come back and revisit it and say, an hour ago when we were, and you said, and you did, that really hurt my feelings, or whatever you're going to say. And you can have a conversation not based in the emotion of the moment, but based in guarding your relationship and making sure that there's not a wound that scars somebody and stays there. Because your words are powerful. The old saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. It's not true.
Not true.
It's just not true. Words are painful. Words are hurtful. We have a daughter, she's a wordsmith. And she writes for a living. It's what she does. She's an author. Written all sorts of books and novels and short stories. She's amazing. But words mean things to her.
Yeah.
And so she'll have people say something to her that words don't mean anything to them. They're just words to them. And they'll say stuff, and she takes it to heart, and it pierces her, and it hurts her, and it harms her. And so we'll have to pray through and help her forgive and get past it. And it's hard for her to understand why those words don't mean anything to the people who said it to her.
Right.
Especially when they know that she is a word person and a word girl.
Yeah.
And not the cartoon. A real
They
one.
just don't understand the impact that they have on her.
So your words really matter.
Yeah.
And your words, how you speak to each other, how you speak about each other, they matter. I think on another video I talked about, I do a lot of the talking. Sorry. She's probably better.
I'll do all the talking. It's okay.
But anyway, how I worked at a place, and where I was working at, it was really busy that particular day, and we had a whole big, huge line of, and it was almost all guys. Actually, it was all guys. And they were talking bad about their wives and their girlfriends. They were talking about them almost like they were their livestock or their property instead of their loved person.
Right.
And this went on, and I just ignored it, kept working, because I was there to work, not to have a conversation, until one of the guys asked me point blank about my wife. And so, what do you think about all this? Well, how about your wife, man? And I'm like, well, I'm glad you asked the question. So I've made two great decisions in my life. One was asking Jesus Christ into my heart as my Lord and Savior. I was asking my wife to be my wife. I said, and I have an amazing spouse. She's incredible, and God has put things in her that just blesses me all the time. She's just an amazing young lady, and I'm just so glad that I have her on my side. Yeah. And the room got really kind of quiet because they've been doing nothing but bad mouthing their girlfriends and wives. And in the back of the room, and we're probably like 10, 12 deep, maybe a little more, and there's an older gentleman back there, and he's like, finally, someone said something good about their spouse. I'm like, well, how about you? Because I've been married for, at that time, like 40 some odd years, and he and his wife were, and he told me, and I had this conversation about our spouses, and we're bragging on our wives to each other. The room was quiet until he left and I left because they didn't want to say another thing. Because you have to guard what you say, not just to your spouse, but about your spouse.
Yes.
And been really easy to find something really small. She would have never known. God would have never told her. Yeah. Right? But you still have to guard that, even in that moment. Right. You don't have to go with the flow of the crowd. You don't have to go with the flow of your own thoughts. You can stop. The Bible talks about one of the fruits of the Spirit is self-control. Right. If you can't control your own mouth, then you can't control anything.
Right. That's true. I think, too, that you have to purposefully choose the thoughts you're going to think. Absolutely. And the words you're going to speak. Ahead of time. Purposefully think about those things. When I'm watching Brian do something, he's working on the computer or he's gone outside to work on something or whatever, I am watching him and watching what he's doing. I'm thinking, wow, I'm really glad that he can do that for our family. Or I purposefully make my thoughts go to gratitude, thankfulness. I'm noticing the things that he's doing, and I'm being appreciative or even impressed by what he's doing. I'm I make myself think good thoughts. I choose the good thoughts. We often tell people, couples, that if they're having a struggle and they seem to only see all the awful things that their spouse is
Right.
doing, that you need to think back on, why did you fall in love with that person?
Yeah.
So if you just can't find anything right there in front of you to be thankful about, go back and think in the beginning, why did I fall in love with this person? Why are we together? What were the wonderful things we did when we first fell in love?
Yeah.
Those kind of things.
Yeah.
And that will spark you into better thoughts, hopefully, in the current time.
Yeah. And even your approach there isn't, oh my God, why did I marry this person?
Yeah. Right. Don't do that.
What was I thinking? That's not the approach.
No.
The approach is, what was I thinking? And why what was it that attracted me to this person?
Yeah.
What was it that cemented our relationship to the
Mhm.
point that I said, I want to spend the rest of my life with you?
Right.
What was that? Oh yeah, there's that.
Mm-hmm.
And that still is in there.
Yeah.
And that still remains, and nurture that,
Mm-hmm.
with your thoughts and with your words.
Yeah. Something we've always tried to do through the years is to keep remembering those things. So like we would, on our each anniversary, or just if we're out on a date or whatever, then we would just say, remember when this happened, when we got together, remember when we went and did this, remember when you said this to me. And we would do a lot of the I remember this, but if we kept doing that and kept refreshing our memories about the things when we fell in love and how they how wonderful and special it was, then that helped us to stay in good attitude and in good mindset in our current life. Yeah. It was just a good thing to do, a good practice to do, I guess.
Yeah. And then when we leave a room or enter a room, we always say, I love you, as part of the hello or the goodbye. Typically there's a kiss involved. Sometimes it's memorable, sometimes it's not. When it's not, we go back and say, that wasn't memorable. You should try that again.
That's right.
but we always communicate, and that sets a tone for the words of our mouth. So, and other people are like, stop it. I'm like, how's your relationship?
Yeah.
And like, well, we don't do that. I said, well, why not? Well, I told her I loved her when I married her. That's enough, right?
No, it's not.
And it's not. She needs to hear it all the time. And frankly, men need to hear it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
They need to hear, she just said that, she was impressed by something I did. I'm sitting there going, really? She thinks it's impressive? Wow, that's kind of cool. I had a moment. And she was just talking and like, wow.
Wow.
I'm impressive. But you just don't, the words of your mouth matter. They make a difference.
Yeah.
And so, but again, they start with your thoughts. So take captive your thoughts.
Yes.
Remember that as you think on whatever you think on, that's what you're going to become.
Mm-hmm.
And go to Proverbs or Philippians rather, 4.
Philippians 4:8.
Mm-hmm. And look at the things God says to think on.
Yep.
He says, think of things above, not below. He says, he gives you a list of things to think about, and apply that to your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
Apply those things
to
your spouse. Look at the eternal goodness that God has in, because the Bible talks about in Ephesians 5, men, that we're supposed to represent our wives perfect and blameless to God.
Right.
Just like Jesus is presenting the church perfect and blameless to the Father. So part of our job is to make sure that they're good.
Yes.
And we do that by how we think about them. We do that by how we encourage them, by how we talk to them, how we love them. And we take those thoughts, those words, and we use them to bless our own marriage and be an example to others on how they should live theirs.
Right.
Any final thoughts?
You got it. You did it.
We did it.
Good job.
All right. Well, thanks for hanging out with us for this episode. We got another episode coming up soon, and we will talk to you then. All right. Bye for now.